So this is the Nephew SDK meeting for March 26, 2024. Before we get started, anyone has any agenda items that they want to discuss today? Okay. So for me, I mean, because Dan or Dijon is not here today, so I guess the only update that would be provided by me. I have a semi-working, not really there yet, proxy operator. Almost there. I'm hoping at the end of the week it'll be something. So what that does is it generates. So it does a callback, and on delete. So far on delete and on just update and create. And then right now writing the same thing. So that's it. Moving forward, I'm going to push that into using the Go plugins from Hershey Corp. And so at this point, what it does is it generates a config map of the values.yaml that needed to apply the Helm charts onto the workload clusters. So some of the more interesting questions that actually came while doing this is there's some hard-coded values here. And part of this is needed for a unmodified Helm charts, which is our goal actually when we started this year. We said one of the goals is to see whether or not we can onboard Helm charts unmodified. So for FreeFiGC, like pretty much all the Helm charts that I have encountered from at least 3 other NF vendors, the NADs are part of the Helm charts. So that's why they are also asking inputs for values.yaml on things like the CNI that you're going to use and the master interface that CNI that secondary interface will be using. Those things are not propagated through NF deployment at this point. So for POC, but for this very quick and dirty write-up coding, I just hard coded for now. In fact, my node isn't even ETH0; it's actually like ENC as ECN or CNN 4 or something like that. So it doesn't work. It'll complain. Multis will complain and things like this. But at this point, we are, I mean, for me anyway, planning to do the second integrations once the plugin is done, hopefully this week. The one after that would be integrating with the rest of the Nephew control plane pieces, the management cluster pieces. And by getting that probably means that I have to the newly created package would have to strip the NAD cap functions, so there won't be any NAD generated by the management cluster, and then we'll have the Helm charts taking that row, and then at the same time that basically also means that these informations, which are interestingly encapsulated right now by the workload cluster object, would have to somehow be also attached to the NF deployment. So that's the first thing. The second part is I think I talked about that with other NF vendors. One of this is obviously right now without plugin the clients could be passed, but then the demarcation points of where the proxy would do something versus what is, actually a better way to say it, what resources are owned by the proxy and what resources are owned by the business logic from the vendors. In that case, one of the discussions I had with Kiran actually offline at that point was obviously NF deployment is owned by the proxy. So they'll get something back and they'll update statuses off of whatever has been returned. So we have to kind of finalize what the the API, this API would be like. Other than error, it must be something more than error. And then the second part is the thing that the proxy will not own is you, as a business logic, for instance, in this particular case, you would need to apply the config map that hosts the value.yaml and the Helm released object, particularly because this uses Flux. And then those two are something you have to apply to API server to this particular namespace. And we are not owning that on the proxy because the proxy shouldn't be implementing Flux specific logic. So we kind of offload that into business logic moving forward. So that's the idea. That's one of the demarcation points of what belongs to NF vendors and what belongs to an FEO proxy. And then that kind of determines what kind of information is to be returned also from the vendor business logic. So they have to, and that's actually come to point number 3, which is supposedly because we are continuously reconciling. Hello?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Yeah, you're back now.
So did we lose all 11 minutes of me just talking?
No, maybe
no,
2.
No, just a minute or 2. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Anyway, so those are the earlier pieces, I guess, for that matter. So I don't know where we're supposed to go. So one of this is, as I said earlier, this highlighted piece is that the NAD. By the time we do full integrations, I'm offloading the NAD down to the operator level because the Helm charts usually owns that. So at least for FreeFlyGC as a reference, we do that, and then we'll have to test whether or not we can skip NAD generations from control plane effects. Okay, and then second part is the ownership of resources. Any Helm and Flux related resources are owned by the business logic. So the proxy would not own any of those. And then finally, because they own the Helm objects or monitoring the Helm charts while they were deployed, we may actually have to keep some sort of back channels for the business logic to update the proxy, because again, proxy owns the NF deployment. So that's the third thing that I haven't done yet. The one thing that hasn't been done, obviously, is the Go plugin, which we'll use. At this point, what I'm going to use is HashiCorp's Go plugin, which is this guy. So it has a gRPC backend, so maybe I'll do that too. And then whether or not we can keep that channel open and have the business logic send some updates would be something I'll probably explore as we go. And then, yeah, those are the 3 parts, I think. the proxy to business logic communications. So once Vim's K form is available, we'll take the DAG and push it over to a default business logic that we own by Nephew that would be executing the DAG, and then on an outside logic, because the proxy itself doesn't really assume K form. The K form things, once it's available, will be something that we'll do as part of the default. I'm leaning towards maybe having multiple sample business backends, business logic backends. One of them is like what I'm implementing now, which does the full templates and all that stuff. The whole template to generate the values.yaml, because that's a sample. If you want to own your business logic with full bloom code, you can do that. Or if you do K-form, then the business logic only executes the DAG generated by K-form, and then we'll integrate that with the CLI front end also. And then at that point, you'll be executing the DAG. You'll be just leveraging the default business logic backend, and then it will pass the DAG by itself, because at that point, your mapping logic would happen while you execute the CLI.
Stephen, I think I've missed a step here. Why are we connecting to K-form, and where do we need a DAG?
The K-form generates the DAG. So CLI, which is what Dan and Odishan will be working on currently. So he will once we have Vim stuff, we'll take the CLIs and kind of integrate that. So there'll be one feature of the SDK where your Helm, one of the primary things to do in Helm is mapping NF deployment plus the vendor extension resources into values.yaml, which is basically a config map. And so supposedly K-form will be able to do that rather easily with basically just YAMLs.
But let's slow down a second here. I don't know if we've decided we're using K-form, right? I mean, we have everything from the package in Nephew, right? I'm just confused how we jumped suddenly to be using K-form in a DAG when we're injecting values here into the Helm chart.
So this is one way to explore. So I'm not saying we definitely will, but then we'll definitely explore that way of one of the issues, I guess, reflected is that can we do this simple mapping without writing code? This is code, and then I think both you and Vim were saying that you have mechanisms to do so, and then we take one of those or both, and then we'll this is POC still, so we'll build a POC based on, let's say, K-form now, or not now because it's not available yet. Based on K-form, the plan is anyway. So no one has done anything yet. One of the idea would be once you have the capabilities to map the NF deployment plus vendor extension resources into values.yaml, that would be part of the CLI. So someone would always have to write business logic, and then the business logic, instead of writing code, would be substituted by just writing a mapping YAML. And then once you execute a CLI, it generates in K-form's case, it generates a DAG, and then that DAG gets bundled in the NF package. So that's one form of operations. And then if they do that, then the proxy with the provider saying that we're using, say, K-form backends, then it would then execute the business logic backends that would be taking the DAG from the package and then execute it. And then it's assumed that the flux and everything would be in the backend already running. So that's one form. So which is the form that I'm not taking right now for implementation, because obviously K-form's not available yet. So what I'm doing now is the mapping is done in code, and it takes NF deployments. The UPF, there's no vendor logic necessary, vendor extension needed for FreeFiGC. Take NF deployments and push it into a template, and then it generates the values.yaml config map. So that's one form that I'll be building as a sample as a POC. The other form would be, can we do this without writing code? And then at this point, we are, at least so far on the discussion, we're thinking of trying as a POC on Vim's K-form to see how that would work and how little code do we have to write.
Okay. So I think, yeah, this is basically the correct approach, right? We all know that we have to write code to get that value in. The question is what kind of code, right?
Yes.
So here's an example of writing it in Go, right?
Yes.
And it's kind of cumbersome in Go, I think.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you can see that, right? This is the majority of the time that I spend on doing this is to do this mapping.
I do have a library I want to show in SIG 2 that makes working with these kind of data structures a bit easier. Like you can do kind of a path-based. You can kind of write it in Go, but it kind of looks like Python in terms of, or JavaScript. It's like a bit easier to delve into these things. But still, you'll have to write code. Another option is, of course, to maybe write it in Python, right? Any other language. And you mentioned HashiCorp. I've kind of cooled over the HashiCorp solution. I can explain why later. But yeah, it is a solution for writing a plugin. It just assumes that the plugin is in process. I think the way we're going to work, we'll probably want plugins running in some external runner pod or some other area. That's how Porch works, right? So, and that opens up possibly other options other than HashiCorp's idea. But anyway, we have a few different solutions for running plugins.
Well, for POC, let's get one thing going, and then
we'll see. For POC, I have a much simpler solution, which is based on Kubernetes exec in the control plane. So I can show how that works. I think it's vastly simpler than implementing a full gRPC server. But anyway, it is pretty easy to just run a command line somewhere else, give it inputs and get some sort of outputs back. And that command basically can do this injection, right? Injection meaning it first has to gather the properties it wants from the package and then inject it, right? And then another option we said as well, why not allow for expressions in the package itself, embedded expressions that can be executed by some sort of expression language evaluator, right? And that's a way to put tiny little snippets of source code already in the package, and then you don't have to write any plugin or anything else, right? So we have a POC of that as well, and I think 2 of those, right? I think I showed one, and I think there's something inside K-form that does that, right? But my point of showing it that it could be here is that you could run the expression language already here in your code, like using what is it called? CEL, right? Do you know what I'm talking about, Stephen? CEL? Yeah, so there's an expression language runtime that's used a lot in Kubernetes and other projects. And we can just run it here as part of your code. And whatever you wrote here in Go might be able to be written in simple embedded expressions. I mean, that would be my next test to see if we can do that.
That would be a good thing to try. I think Vim was saying that he's using Cell as well on embedded inside K-form. So and also John was using it actually for other Porch usage at one point. So yeah, that would be nice things to execute. Again, the thing we have to test.
How necessary and powerful it is because expressions are limited.
So we have to kind of try it to see. I mean, FreeFiGC is still sort of simple, but then if we can't even do FreeFiGC, then obviously it's not a viable option.
Right. I can give a slight inspiration here from the world of Tosca. So Tosca is explicitly non-imperative. So the idea is that you do not run plugins that do things, but it has a very rich expression language, And it's also graph-based, right? So how do you pull a property which is somewhere on the graph and you have to kind of travel to the next node, etc. So there's a kind of mini language called Tosca Path. So it's very similar to XPath, or if you've used an XML or other things in JSON where you can kind of travel. So you can give it an expression where you say, hey, go to the next one here, to the next one here, the next one here, and then grab that property, right? You can follow relationships in the DAG. So there are ways actually, you know, in GraphQL is another example, or Gremlin. There are graph traversal languages, right? So you could embed them in CL, right, via a function. So it's actually possible to do pretty powerful things. Probably everything that you've done here in Go code could be done in expressions, I imagine. That's kind of the test to do, right?
Yes.
And if we do that, then that means that for a lot of use cases, when you use Helm, you don't actually need to write any special plugin code. You can just embed these expressions.
Yes. So that was the idea. So that was one of the issues that I think both you and Wim raised, which is the goal is once I do this, the next thing would be let's see whether or not we can do it without having any code. So on CLI level, you basically just write some expressions or some sort of
mapping. I mean, it's still code. It's just code in a different
language. It's not compile code.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's markup code. And then well, or something simplistic anyway. And then that generates into something as part of the CLI embedded inside the Anchor package, and then we'll have some business logic plugin from Nephew that will directly execute that. And so I mean I would love to see that. And there, as you said, there are tons of solutions obviously already that are working on this. So it would be it would be nice to see if a POC could be done, if anyone interested to write a POC off of that with Free5GC. But then today, we sort of waiting for Kform because they're saying that they could basically do the pretty similar things. But as you said, there are other projects as well. But this is more the step one. I just want to see what the gaps are in terms of.
So I'm just kind of brainstorming here, but the way I would solve it probably is a kept function that evaluates any expression inside the package, right? So give it a special kind of tag. So it's unaware, this kept function would be, you can call it eval or something like that. It's unaware of anything regarding Free5GC or Nephew or anything else, right? All it does is go through all the package and looks for strings which have a special prefix or something. And then, okay, this is an expression. And then it evaluates that within the package, right, using CL. So it's a general purpose tool just for evaluating expressions, right? That's how I would probably proceed to create something like that. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah. So this is okay. So this would be one of the sample backends, I guess, that we'll use, the business logic backend. It would just take, but then so you push the logic out to the time of writing the business logic in regular.
Hey, Stephen, your sound cut off again.
Hello?
Yeah, you're back.
Okay. Yeah. So this is a really weird thing from they keep on changing the microphones into my iPhone. I don't know why. It only happens with Zoom. Nothing else happens. So I can't tell what the configuration is that keeps on going into my phone. But anyway, no. So that's so I haven't written that backend yet, and I can't say I know that very well. So that's something to explore. And then it will be great to then use at the CLI time, if you will, to write an expression language, and then when it comes to the proxy, then it would execute that expression. Then it would generate the config map actually at the end. But I haven't looked at that, so I don't know if there's any good pointers things to look into. Or in other cases, I was always going to offload that into either Vim or someone else that would have their corresponding project available. But that's the goal. The goal is write very simplistic mapping functions, if you will, or YAMLs, and then we'll in our backend here, we'll have some some functional logic or something that would interpret the expressions and generates the needed resources. Okay. Okay. So other than that, I'm working on this, and then as I said, it would hopefully be available by the next meeting. I'll either push PL or just push the code into our POC branch, and then for folks to look at. The unfortunate part is Dan is not here, or Dijon is not here, so we don't really have an update on the CLI front. He did that the last meeting 2 weeks ago, and then so he wraps KubeBuilder, and then it allows us to use the KubeBuilder plugin. You can generate the basic code. For him, he was building a reconciler, which with the proxy is not needed. Then can you generating some sort of stub code that would well, for vendors that choose not to use the expression pieces, they can implement. So that was the next thing I have discussion with him on doing, but then we haven't finalized anything yet. And then next thing, of course, is once this is working, we'll have to do a packaging to integrate any packaging, the cat package tools to the CLI, so that we can bundle the operators and the NF package, and that would be pretty when that happens. So that the goal is to get that integration done before the ONE Summit, and then I don't quite know when we really have those Nephew. We don't have a Nephew day for sure, unlike last time. I think we have the MTF or something, or whatever that test forum has allocated some time for Nephew, but then I guess attendees have to pay to get into that. So we don't know how that goes yet. But anyway, so at least I do have a talk with Kieran, and then we may do some demo. Hopefully they will make it work before then. Yeah, so that's my update. Any questions? Yeah, so I suspect the next thing to do, well, once this is working, then the next thing to do would be integrating with the control plane. Right now, I just apply the NF deployment directly on the workload clusters, so it hasn't gone through the hydration pipeline yet, which is interesting, I guess. The regular expression pieces and things would basically just be a additional resource that get attached to the NF deployment, so no one would do anything on that. I would guess it should just work, but we have to try. Okay, cool. So that's again, Dan is not here, so so he and I are only the two people working on this. So that was my update. So is there any questions? Is there anything else anyone wants to talk about? Well, if not, then, well, we get about 26 minutes back. So thank you.
Thanks, Stephen.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, bye-bye.